Well, welcome to this episode of the Willingdon on Mission podcast. I'm John. I get to be the host. Today, we have our third episode of a series with Ricky and Karen Sanchez. Ricky and Karen, welcome.
Yes, good to be here.
And those of you who are paying attention will see that there's more shirts. Karen's got Canada shirt. Ricky has another sports shirt. Can you just tell us about that shirt?
With that, I started basketball camp for inner city kids in Fresno, where we were living, and it was part of our MB Church Butler there. And this goes back to our fourth annual, which was in 2000, so it's vintage now. And basically, it's a camp that we brought in kids who would never be able to afford camp and share Jesus with them. So lots of kids would accept Christ. We'd have a great time right there in the community. So
beautiful. And you still have the shirt. That's great. So my question today for you is this. Can you give us a glimpse into Thai and Cambodian culture? So those of you who may not know, Ricky and Karen serve in Thailand. They've lived there for a long time. They've got ministry in Cambodia as well. Give us a glimpse into the culture, and then how's God working? How's God meeting people within those contexts?
Yeah, we love Thailand and Cambodia, and there's lots of similarities when you kind of just are at the surface level, and then as you go deeper, you go, oh, definitely some big differences. I would say both countries are very devout Buddhists in general, and would share kind of an honoring of older people, a definite belief in reincarnation and karma. I would say most people would say it's not pure Buddhism, but it would be mixed with animism. So like folk Buddhism, a lot of animistic beliefs that just leads to this deep, deep fear that kind of is a base for a lot of how they do life. Very easy to love. Thai people and Cambodian people, just like the kindest, most generous people you can meet. It's a lovely place to live. We have found that when I think about how people come to Christ in both contexts, I would say we've found that when we go to Cambodia, we have some partners there that we partner with. We bring teams to, we help them church plant, that kind of thing. We're tending to deal with a much poorer socioeconomic class of people, whether it's in the capital city or out in the small villages. And there seems to be a real openness to saying yes to the gospel. For example, just a couple months ago, we brought a team in and we did some eyeglass clinics in some rural areas. And in 2 days, almost 150 people gave their lives to Christ. And it was just miraculous, you know. And we had the last station in this clinic, we call it the Salvation Tent. And we have like 4 Cambodian evangelists there. They're just this group of amazing women. They're kind of older widows, and they each pastor a church out in the countryside, and they're just sharing the gospel, praying for people. And a lot of how they said that the people that said yes to Christ came to that point were through prayer and feeling like something had been healed, or they shared that they've been being tormented by evil spirits, and so they would pray for them, lay hands on them, and they would feel this peace come over them. So kind of a bit of a sign and a wonder. Like I would say that's how people come to Christ. It's not really an apologetic conversation where like we debate Buddhism versus Christianity. It's often a very experiential beginning, and then the hard work of discipleship takes place later. I think sometimes when you think about Thailand, people say that in general, Thailand, because Thailand's never been colonized over, all of history, there is a very slow response to the gospel. And so same thing, people who come to Christ, is often they see Jesus in a dream at night. Or there's a phrase that we often use in church planting in Thailand, belong before you believe. And they tend to be drawn into something that the church is doing, like they're handing out food packages or they're doing a meal for a poor community. or a Christmas outreach, something like that, and they get drawn into that kindness and that very giving experience, and then they slowly come more and more and more, and it might take years for them to say yes to Christ and no to Buddhism. And so a lot of that's based on relationship, and much slower than what we see happening in Cambodia.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think Karen touched on it early on when we were doing statistics. We said 80 to 85% of all people coming to Christ in Thailand was through signs and wonders. Either, like she said, something was tormenting them, we'd pray and it would leave, or physical healings. So that a lot of them, something big would happen. Now, with that comes probably a hard part. Any church could understand this. It's discipleship is how you keep people. And doing that is often harder in Thailand because it's not part of their context. To take a time out on a weekend and go to a service is really not part of their culture. They go to a temple, but it can be for 5 minutes, it can be for 20 minutes, and they're gone. But there's not a person leading that. They just go, put their arms or their some kind of sacrifice to the idols, and then they're gone. So that's been a challenge, and yet we've tried to make church kind of, in a sense, fit what works for them. So one of the things we did creatively was they decided Saturday was a better day to meet than Sunday. Traditionally, we want to meet on Sundays, the Lord's Day. So a lot of our churches meet on Saturday. And then the other cool thing that I love, and this was something we started, but it's something that happened, is all Thai churches, whether they're rich or poor, they have a meal together. And that's where a lot of discipleship happens. So you're eating, you're sitting around, like sitting on the floor, and I can't do that anymore. So I'm sitting up on a chair, and things are happening, and people are sharing, and then we start praying for people. And we've had people come to Christ there, or just people share what's really going on. And it's beautiful to see the community coming together. So that part, I think, is such a key. Discipleship part, people coming to Christ can happen faster, but then just keeping them and discipling them, that takes a lot longer, but you got to be willing to put in that work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That is a really helpful glimpse into both Thai and Cambodian culture, and it's quite different, obviously, than the Canadian context, right? Where signs and wonders and spiritual opposition isn't seen in quite the same way. And so thank you. This is a really helpful glimpse for us to know kind of a way that God works, and also how we can pray for you, and how he has equipped you to proclaim the gospel. So thanks. For those of you who are watching and who are excited to hear more, there's going to be another episode next week where there's one more. And if this is the first one that you've seen, there's actually 2 earlier. And so listen to those, because you'll get to know these guys. You've dropped in sort of partway through a conversation. Next week, we're going to talk specifically about how we can pray for these guys. And so you're not going to want to miss that. God bless you all.